Good morning, everybody, and thanks for coming to I'm still going to call it daily intimacy, even though it's now weekly intimacy. Of course, intimacy is still a daily practice. So, and I like the name, I like the words daily intimacy together for that reason. And so I think I'm going to keep calling it daily intimacy, even though we're meeting now on, sorry, just adjusting my screen here. Even though we're meeting on Tuesdays weekly at 9 a.m. So that is the story. And I'm really excited today because I have a special guest, and I'll introduce her in just a little bit. I was saying to Sunshine this morning that I know so many amazing people, and I feel really blessed to know so many amazing people. And this is a wonderful opportunity to connect with not only all of you, but also with these beautiful teachers and colleagues that I haven't connected with so regularly. This is just like a great opportunity to come together. So I'm really happy about that. Okay, so we are going to start with a centering. And with that, I invite you to have a breath and gently close your eyes. Good. Yeah, and just begin to make some connection between your body, your skin, and the chair you're sitting on, or the bed you're lying on, the couch, or if you're standing, your feet and the floor, whatever's holding you. I invite you to first bring your awareness to the scene and the felt that it is holding you right now, whether it's the floor, the chair, the couch, the bed. And then feel more deeply into it as if the floor or the couch or the bed were actually reaching up and moving towards you to support you even more. So just feel the energy of whatever it is you're sitting on connect with you more deeply and support you. And with that, I invite you to breathe deeply, relax the belly, relax the shoulders, and check in with your jaw this morning, see if there's any residual tension there from sleep. You might wiggle your jaws back and forth a little bit, open your mouth, yawn. Yawning is really good for the body, the soul. And a few exhales with some sound. So a deep breath in. And find that place in your body that feels tight this morning, and bring your hands to wherever that is. It might be your lower back or hip. And if you keep your eyes closed, if that works for you, then it just allows you to tune in more deeply to yourself. And so just bring your hands to whatever space. Maybe it's your jaw, maybe it's your eyes, maybe the back of your head and your neck. Just put your hands there and give that place in your body a little bit of micro movement. So just a tiny, tiny, tiny movement. It's maybe a tiny shake or a little squeeze and release. Just a tiny movement. And then keeping your hands there, I'm going to invite you to have a breath and then exhale with a sound. And you're all muted, so you can make as loud a sound as you would like. So have a breath in now. I want you to make the sound of the sensation. Whatever the sound is of that part of your body and that sensation, I want you to make that sound. So it might be like, it might be like, ooh, it might be like, ooh, ah, ooh, whatever, like good guttural sounds. It might be like, whatever that sound is. That's the sound of my lower back. And now I want you to bring the micro movement in to the equation and add the breath and the sound. So a little micro movement in wherever you are, whatever's tight or having sensation, and then a breath with the movement and a sound. And keep the movement. Good. Okay, and release. And now one more piece to this meditation. I want you to bring your hands to a place that feels really open. So it might be your heart, or maybe your shoulders, or your jaw. Just bring your hands to the place that feels really open to you. And as you breathe, make the sound of open. Whatever your sound of open is. Breath in. And one more time, the sound of open. Now I want you to put your hands back to that other place. And I want you to make the sound of open, that sound that you just made. Bring it to the other spot. And maybe a little bit of micro movement if that feels right for your body. Great. And release. And just notice how your body's feeling in this moment. If you want to have a breath and feel yourself back in the room that you're in. Feel the chair or the couch beneath you. Gently open your eyes if you haven't already. And if you want to put a word in the chat about how you feel in this moment after that meditation exercise, please do. I'd love to know how that impacted you this morning. Okay, so I am going to take a moment and introduce my friend, Bubbly Light Flow, Expanded, Expansive. Nice, awesome. It's a really good exercise to remember, and you can imagine, I don't have to say how it works, you can imagine how it works. Open, wonderful, calm. Oh, Vladimir, nice to see you here. Nice to see everybody. So I'm going to take a moment and introduce Sunshine. I want to remind you that if you want to see her as the speaker when she's speaking, you can change your view to speaker view, but you can also put your cursor over her picture and touch on my computer, it's a thumbtack. I think on other computers, there's something else, depending on what version you have, but you can kind of highlight her and keep her in the center if you would like. Anyway, I would like to, and very happy to introduce Sunshine Beeson, who's here with us today. And Sunshine and I met in a really funny way. I seem to always tell this group how I met the people that are coming on. But I had a personal trainer a couple years ago that I was working with that I totally adored. And to my surprise and delight, we started talking about Tantra, I think, or something like that. Maybe it was like what I do for work, and, you know, that kind of thing came into our conversation. And then she said, my mom, you have to meet my mom in Colorado. And I was like, what? It was very surprising. Anyway, Sunshine ended up moving here from Colorado. And so I did meet her mom a couple of years ago. And yeah, it's been really a pleasure. And I think of you as like this goddess, ultimate goddess. And what I know about Sunshine is that she has a lot of creative healing modalities, powerful healing modalities that she uses in her practice. One is iridology, which is something that a lot of people don't know what that is about. So it's interesting, you can look that up. And she's been teaching Tantra, I think since the 80s. And she does that herself and also with her partner, which is really cool. They work with couples together, and they've been leading retreats out in Colorado, and she works with individuals. And I'm really happy that you brought the theme that you did, because we haven't talked about this yet. And the divine masculine and divine feminine are something that I think about and talk about often. And so I'm happy to bring that here, and with the backdrop of like how those constructs and ways of thinking, and I hope we get into this somehow, like fit into what's happening now. So we'll see where the conversation evolves to, but here we go. So welcome, Sunshine.
Thank you, Robyn. It's a pleasure to be here with your clan and all of you folks. Nice to see you all. Yeah, so I'll just say a brief thing because many people don't know what iridology is. It's it's an assessment tool looking at the blueprint of your eyes, the windows to your soul. There's a whole mapping of all about you physically and emotionally. So I do assessments with the eyes. That's one modality. That's kind of my platform. So my husband and I, we have our business in the Tantra world is called Sacred Embrace Intimacy. So it's all about how to get more expansive with the energy centers, the chakras. We work with the chakras, emotions, and how to trust more in an intimate way with each other. One of my topics that I love to talk about, and I do some online classes with, is the idea of the masculine, feminine, the shadow, and the divine, and the integration about that. So as humans, as we incarnate into this dense physical being, we come into the world with these traits, masculine and feminine. Whether we're male or female, we have both. And it's not a 50-50 kind of joint venture. It's how the patterns and the behaviors of how we develop of what is going to be dominant throughout our life. So there are aspects, I'm going to talk a little bit about the shadow parts first. So in the shadow, I'm just going to throw out some characteristics here. I'm going to ask you though, I'm going to ask you what you might think or feel into would be some shadow feminine traits. I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts and ideas about that. Yes, shadow characteristics for the shadow feminine. Sorry, shadow feminine we're going to talk about first. Yeah, which is not gender specific. Okay. Okay, so we've got feeling needy, dependency, codependent. Nurture is a divine trait, actually. And it is a feminine. Victim, yes, indeed.
Riti wrote consumerism, which I think is yeah.
Oh, consumerism. Yes, right. Well, yes, it is. Indulgence, overspending, that's a shadow feminine. Manipulate. Well, I would say quiet of voice is suppression. Yep, seducer, martyr. Overdoing, Amriti, overdoing is it can go into overwhelm. Overdoing is a shadow masculine because the doing is the masculine, the being is the feminine. It's slippery in here, you know, as to which is which. So yeah, yes, masculine is the doing. Feminine being. Yeah, thanks for putting that in, Robyn. Yes. So how about males can gossip as well as women, but gossip is it's a shadowy thing. It's a shadow feminine thing. And it's almost like it's not a collaboration. Okay, gossip is not collaborating, although it makes you get the sense or feel like you're in community, right? When people are gossiping, it makes you feel like you're part of some clan. But it's not, because it's something about somebody that feels that it's negative, generally. Gossip is not so much about how well people are doing, or supportive. It's not a supportive aspect. Okay, so it's shadowy. The neediness, over pleasing. One of the things that's really core here for the shadow feminine part is, I'm going to say, it's located right in your third chakra, in your autonomy, in your personal will center, which is about self-esteem and self-worth. The not enoughness, which is such a huge core old belief system that we get, back when you're in mom's tummy. These old belief systems, they can go 3 generations back or more, and carry out three generations forward. So okay, Neil, men don't gossip. We just talk about people behind their backs. There you go. Love that. Yeah, so this core thing of not being enough and having to prove is the masculine part, right? And the part that shrinks back is the feminine, when shrinking inside, or shrink wrapping yourselves. And this, again, is not gender specific, because men can do this too. Complaining, I'm sure we've got a lot of complaints going on about what we can't have right now, and wanting to go back to the way things were, because we are so pattern oriented. It's difficult to be amongst change. So the complaining, it can relate to what's happening with us currently right now. Worry is dominant for us right now. It can go into the anxiety and the not knowing, which can take us into, I call all this suffering. And there's some things we can control, some things we can't control, but what we can't control is how much we allow ourselves to suffer, because suffering is optional in the midst of having human emotion. And what I want to say here too, with these shadow aspects, it's not like we want to kill them off or get rid of them, because these are parts of ourself. And many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with parts work or parts therapy. I do hypnotherapy work, alchemy hypnotherapy, working a lot with the inner parts of self. And so it's about loving these parts into a place where they get recalibrated within us, because fragmentation happens. When we're going through some of these shadow traits, it's only parts of ourself that are fragmented. And so how do we reincorporate? How do we cultivate a renewed relationship with all these parts of self? And that, like I say, the big core one is this not enoughness. I'm not enough, or my self-worth. Yeah, that's kind of a dominant one in our world. So let's hear more now about what would be what I love to call the divine or sacred. Sacred actually is a divine feminine trait. What would you think would fall under that category of divine feminine? So abundance, I would put allowing abundance, because the feminine allows. Yeah. Yes, so we're working on some divine feminine traits right now. What are your thoughts about this? Gratitude. Does everybody have a gratitude journal that you're writing in every day? Flow. Yes. Compassion. Yep. Loving, generosity. Yes. Reception. Love that. Eros. Receptivity. Yes, yes, yes. The divine is receptive. This allowing, yielding, opening. Yeah. Expansive. Shakti, power, indeed. Yes. So what's going to be the opposite then of that I'm not enough? Owning, yes, intuition, creativity, beautiful. You guys are awesome. So really owning your autonomy, who you are, what is your purpose? Who did you incarnate here to be? What are your gifts? That's part of the divine feminine, being authentic. Yes. So radiance, radiance. The divine feminine is about birthing life, birthing creativity, birthing the space, creating the space. Fertile. Yes, fertile. Yes, beautiful. It's also about cherishing. Okay, cherishing and appreciation. Desire. What do we desire? Where does our desire come from? It's instilled inside in second chakra. Yeah. The sacred, prayer, sacred and prayer. Now consciousness is a masculine trait. And the two will weave together hand in hand. Pleasure is the feminine. Dance, fluidity with dance, with movement. Anything else? Dream, the dream. Yes, and stillness is actually is masculine, is consciousness. So the moon is yin, the sun is yang. So we have that interwovenness in nature all around. We've got areas, we have geography. What is New York? The geography of New York. Is it masculine or feminine energy there? Those phallic buildings?
Yeah, I'm going to say masculine for sure.
It's masculine. Hawaii is feminine. Water is emotion. Water is fluidity. So we have the masculine and feminine come into play in every part of our life, right? The seed, this is spring now, we're going to be planting seeds. The seeds are the feminine. And the shoots that come up, that's the part of the masculine, the stalk. So we have constant masculine, feminine all the time in our life. So let's talk a little bit about some of the shadow masculine traits. Zodiac signs affect masculine and feminine individuals. You know, I don't know about that of the zodiac of astrology pertaining. I'm sure that there is some speak about it. Aggression, yes, aggression. Manipulation, yeah. Stoic, yeah. Control, for sure, control, yeah. intimidate, demeaning, right? Critical, overly critical. Okay. Fixing, yes. So fixing. The masculine, even in women, want to come up with solutions. They can want to come up with solutions oftentimes and want to fix it. And sometimes we just want to be listened to. Sometimes whomever you are, male or female, you just want to be listened to because you want to talk it out. And you don't want solutions. You don't want fixing. And that's a masculine. When it gets to the solution part is more about I would call it in the divine domain. But the over fixing, the need to over fix, to overdo, right, is the masculine. It's more of a shadow masculine. Is manipulation feminine? I thought it heard was feminine. Yes. Well, some of these can slip into both, because seduction, right? Because seduction can be more of the feminine, and manipulate could be a little bit more of the masculine. But although it could be we can get a little confusing. You can be a woman and you can be manipulative, which is a masculine trait, right? So yes, overdue, the overdue. Greed, a disconnect from your spiritual source. That's a shadow masculine trait. Prayer is feminine, but consciousness and cosmos is the masculine. Deceit, okay. Coercion, to coerce somebody. Dishonesty. We're really focusing here on the shadow masculine things. Arrogance. So competition can be a little tricky here, because there's healthy competition, and then there is non-integral competition. Integrity is a divine masculine trait, being integral. We're going to go into the divine parts too. Over obligating. I don't know if I said that one. Obligation, feeling just overly obligated. Bullying, shadow. Condescending, demeaning, smug. I think we talked about some of those. So as we're going through these, what I'd really love for you to do is see where you personally can identify with any of these aspects. Where do you see these things showing up in yourself? And maybe you can, just jot it down just to bring more awareness. Because these ways of being, it starts to get kind of built into our behavior, and our behaviors become our personality, which is our personal reality, and we can become unaware that we're acting like this, and then that sets up struggle or discord outside of yourself, in your family dynamic, in your personal relationship with your beloved or with your children. And so when we can catch it, and I call this being able to catch it is up here, I call this the observer mind. It's like eagle, because the eagle has a big, broad view of everything. And it can catch a mouse, just from miles and miles of distance. So we want to be able to have that eagle eye, that observer part, which expands. It expands this, what I call the little puppy mind, because puppies need to be trained. And our minds can be like puppies, right?
Can I jump in for a sec?
Absolutely.
Because I just don't want to lose this thought. Thank you. And yes to puppies. Everybody knows I have one right now. So yes, to training the puppy. I'm just thinking as you're talking that, and helping clarify this way of thinking, which is, sort of one way of thinking of these different traits of ourselves, that we all have masculine and feminine inside, despite our biology. And there's shadow sides, which tend to be the parts that either we know or are hidden. They're in shadow, right? They're often tucked away. And then we have these divine parts of ourselves, but it's really a very deep inquiry to look at ourselves and say, okay, which parts am I, acting from today or in this moment even, never mind on a regular basis, and because I'm listening for the interweave with what's happening now as you're speaking, and you asked the question, how do we, or you had an invitation to reflect on how we're being or how we're doing in this time. And so I just wanted to pause there to give people that invitation to take a moment with that, because things are not as they were a month ago or 2 months ago. This is such a different time. And there are different parts of us being expressed that probably, you may not have seen before. And I'll give you a personal example. I have a good relationship with my daughter. She's almost 17. And, we get into little things, of course. She's a teenager. We're human. We've got our family dynamic. But we had kind of a blowout on Saturday, and in 17 years, that has never happened. I left the house without telling her. She knew where I was going, but normally I would go and say, I'm leaving and I'll be back, da-da-da. I left the house. She did something she had never done before while I was gone. And, in 17 years, that had never happened. And I attribute it to what's going on now, like all these things that are beneath the surface in shadow, that just got triggered and came up, and I was reactive and I left the house, and everything's fine now. But so I'm just, naming that it's an interesting time to look at what's at play inside ourselves. And you said it earlier, which of course, is the work of coming back to love with all of these parts of ourselves, which is the hard work to do. So I just wanted to kind of put that together in that frame and invite people to reflect on that. And if anybody has anything they want to share about what they're seeing in themselves on either side, because there's also amazing divinity and divine parts of ourselves that are coming forward, creativity and a lot of seva, a lot of service and giving and loving and care and attention and, and allowing, along with wanting to control. Like, it's just all in the mix. So if anybody wants to share, just put me in the chat, put me, M-E, in the chat, and we'll unmute you. And otherwise, just take a moment here to see if anybody wants to put anything in the chat other than me, if they just want to share, similar to what I shared about the shadows that came bursting forth on Saturday. So Mitch says, wish more folks could do that pause and reflect as you did. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Some people are driven so much more by worry now. I don't see how worry will help, so I'm staying calm in the storm. Exactly. Yeah, so that's a great example, Beverly, of like the worry, which is in shadow, right? Sunshine, like what did you say? Feminine shadow. Mm-hmm. And then calm, which is more allowing and peaceful, is the divine feminine. So it's perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other examples like that? Sometimes there's a sacred message in the negative or shadow. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Actually, Linda, I'm glad you said that, because when I was really aware of how reactive I was, Sunshine, on that day, on Saturday, and the sacred message was like, I really had some feelings that I needed to express that I hadn't, and I had been like tucking them down. I had something that made me feel anxious in the morning, and instead of giving that space and time and like tears or whatever I needed to do, I didn't do that. And so it came out in that way with my daughter. And then that I realized as I was out of the house, okay, Robyn, get to work. So
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because the thing is, really what is permeable right now is so much of this energy. I saw somewhere the other day, if you can't go out, go in, which I love, because I'm all about getting underneath to the core. And so much of what's happening right now is the things, all the distractions that we've had out there, prevent us from really tapping into the minutia of the shadow parts. Yeah, because we're covering them up. We don't want to deal with it. And right now, if you get activated, it's so important that you just be in, just have that kind of awareness. If you need to cry, cry. Just allow the energy to move. And that way we're allowing our divine feminine to hold the space, because the feminine, if she can just outflow, it's the divine masculine actually that holds the space. So your divine masculine inside of yourself can hold that space for you, hold the container. So, yeah. So just, check inside and see what's been arising for you, what's been being pushed down, that this whole energetic, what I call breakdown creates breakthrough, right? So what can you discover in here that needs to move, that needs to be held tenderly? And because when it does, then when you move that, well, I phrase it like this. Okay, somebody, Annie, do you want to share what you've got going on? And then we'll go to Rob.
Annie, go ahead and unmute, or I can unmute you. I got you.
She has to type.
I'm trying. Oh, she has to type. Okay, Annie, go ahead and type, and Rob, unmute, and we'd love to hear you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rob. So, a couple things. One of the things that I realized in this conversation is COVID-19 is flowing, and in my masculine, I can't control it. I don't know the borders. I don't know when it's going to stop. I don't know. I can't prevent it from harming the people I care about. I can't always control my own actions in terms of risking my exposure, things like that. So what I found, so I go to my masculine, I ground, and I look at what I can own, I can be. And things like I'm doing more volunteering, I'm doing more writing. I'm allowing people to express themselves rather than get something done. I spend more time on the phone just letting people talk and letting people be, instead of moving them towards a direction. I think my shadow side shows up from time to time. I get angry. I notice, not like angry like beat people up, angry more like in my body, I feel this vibration that's anger. And I notice that, and I notice that I can allow myself to have those feelings. I can express that if I want to, and let it go. So whether I practice with Colin and his yoga, or whether I do my meditation, or whether I have an opportunity to share that with my honey, that's kind of how I kind of notice it. Okay, it is. I'm expressing that emotion. I've expressed that emotion. Okay, all right, now practice a grounding exercise, and let's get back to holding space for the people I care about.
Ooh, Rob, thank you so much. That was a beautiful expression of such balance that you're doing right now with both. It's lovely. You know, the allowing, the listening, the grounding, the holding space, and letting that anger. You know, the flip side of anger is passion. So we have to allow it some space, because otherwise these emotions take up residency in different parts of our body. Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
That was beautiful, Rob. Thank you. Vladimir and also Annie, you're welcome to type and share. And I know we haven't gotten to all the divine masculine. Have we, Sunshine? A couple: grounding, holding space.
Truth, honor, loyal, intention, strategy, and vitality, strategizing. Those are masculine traits. Logic is more, I would say it's more of a, in the neutral plane. I don't call that divine. Humility, having vision is a divine masculine trait. Protects, produces, again, consciousness, adventurousness, rational. Those are just some more of the masculine. Vision like the eagle. Yes. The other piece I wanted to say, opposite of the eagle, when we're talking about mind, I say the way that you'll know you're the opposite of that expansive place is mouse. Mouse mind is constriction, it's contraction. It's when all those parts in here, the judgment, the critic, is really active and spinning you just round and round, not knowing where to go, bumping into things. So that's mouse mind. So you can catch yourself. Are you in eagle mind or are you in mouse mind?
Well, it's a great example, because I think the gift in this conversation is seeing those polarities, you know, some that have been expressed already, and giving us a frame to notice where we're at and find the other side. Like, see the shadow, find the light, you know, is an invitation. Always, but especially now, because everything's under a microscope and magnified, and so it's more intense. Let's take a moment just to see what Annie and Vladimir shared. And it says, let 14-year-old daughter go. So it's a letting go, parenting. My role as mom is done. That is how I feel. I didn't get to see her for 3 weeks, and then I got to bring her. She has grown up so much, independent. Yeah. So the balance to let her know. Yes. And then Vladimir says, she recovered from what he's sure was COVID, couldn't get tested, which gave rise to intense frustration and helplessness. I've had to let go of the illusion of control. Also, I've been in giver mode forever, and this has taught me to slow down and be fine with receiving. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yep. Yes.
Is it Zana has a question?
Yeah, great. Okay, Jana, do you want to unmute, or shall I do it?
Yes, I just want to ask it. Thank you so much. It's such a deep concept, and you presenting it so well. I'm curious if you can say something else about incorporating the shadow. You said it at the beginning that we still need to incorporate it somehow in order to have a relationship.
So incorporating that, interweaving it is first and foremost is having awareness, right? We have to identify what's happening. And those are specific patterns, actually, imprinted patterns that evolve from the time you're young with your environment, with your parents, with everything outside of you. So being able to do inner work, right, is going to address the shadow parts and reintegrate it, is how I call it, recalibrate it. But that's, you know, inner process work, being able to do that.
Yeah, I would add to that another piece which fits in exactly with what you said, which is adding compassion, like applying compassion.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
It's hard to do. I had something come up recently in the last 24 hours, and I noticed myself giving myself like a judgment or a rule about something. And then I was like, I noticed contraction around that. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, oh. And then I just like applied love, compassion, like a salve of compassion.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's an interesting time with that piece because seems a lot of rules and parts that are reacting, and it's really the way to be loving right now. So we have some more time, and let's see if there's Annie, you're doing a great parenting job if your daughter can be independent rather than, yes, I agree with that 100%. I did want to say that, Annie. It's such a, parenting is just the quintessential letting go experience over and over and over and over again. And I would say, at least for me in my life, has brought so many shadows and so much light and a constant back and forth between those two. I hear you, and I didn't want to just bypass that. I wanted to also say that, not seeing your daughter for 3 weeks during a time like this, that just feels like my heart feels a lot of compassion for how that must feel. So I'm just sending you love. Thank you for sharing that with us. Any questions or comments around this topic of shadow and light, masculine and feminine traits? Anything anybody wants to add to the conversation?
Hi, this is Linda. I wanted to ask, because earlier Sunshine was saying there are some traits that I think she called them like divine ones that were a little bit separate from the masculine or feminine. I was wondering if you could just speak about that again and maybe list a few of those just to better understand that.
So the way that I categorize it in the divine, it's more about, you can say positive or uplifting or supportive. If those traits are supportive to you and others, then I would call it I would classify it in the divine category, if that makes sense.
Does that answer your question, Linda?
Yes, that does. So uplifting, really like serving other, like, does it serve, what was the word you used? But yeah, if it's uplifting, but also does it serve someone else as well? Right?
Does it contribute to the positivity of your growth and others? Is it supportive to you, or does it take away? Right?
Right.
So being critical as opposed to being accepting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
We have a few more minutes, and I just want to, not to open up, let's see, Matt, if everyone is divine, as you say, what do you mean by the divine category? Okay, I'm going to put my thing to the side and invite you to answer that, Sunshine. The question there from Matt, if you see it.
If everyone has divine, as you say, what do you mean in the divine category? Could you speak more about that, Matt, or inquire a little bit more about that?
I'm just trying to get a better sense of definitions of the terms and knowing which terms are relatively synonymous and which terms are different. Obviously, masculine and feminine are opposites, or very different. I thought divine meant feminine, but then I believe Robyn said, I could be remembering wrong, but I thought you said that everyone has divine. So then later I hear that something is in the divine category, and I'm thinking, well, everyone is divine. What does in the divine category mean? So I would be happy to see a list. I mean, I'm not asking you need to do this, but what traits are masculine, shadow, masculine, not shadow, feminine, shadow, not shadow, or light? What's divine? So terminology, I just want to get the term straight. So when I hear things, the term doesn't mean something different this time than it meant last time.
Thanks, Matt. Before you dive in, Sunshine, I just want to say, because Matt's asking, sort of a summary, So you could do that. Also, when I send the recording, I can type a few examples of shadow and light in those categories.
I think that would be a great idea. Yeah.
I like that.
You can look it over again, because then you'll receive it better, because this is semantics and there's a lot of words that we're talking and describing here. So
It's just fine as long as I know what the words mean in terms of how you mean them. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think you'll have a better understanding if you listen again, and Robyn's going to put some other clarifications in there for you. Thank you for your question.
Sure. Look forward to the info.
Thanks, Matt. And so we have time for probably one more question. Laura, I've got it in the chat.
So at what point does all the external regulation and strategizing right now become too controlling? That's a political question. Also, how do we differentiate between controlling ourselves in shadow masculine and healthy self-regulation with the virus? We have control about how we react or respond. Only two things. So if we're in reaction, that's when we go into the shadow parts, right? We go into the fear, the worry, the stress, the what ifs. The way we respond is what kinds of things, activities can we do to go inward that is feeding and nourishing ourselves in a healthy way in all four domains: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. I hope that answers that question.
That's exactly the place I was thinking about bringing us, and it's a longer topic, which we'll get to another time. But that was a great question and a great response.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yes, a political question. Okay, let's see. One more comment. Oh, Holly is responding to Matt. Thank you. And Linda says, noticing I have urgency to balance myself in that masculine trait. Noticing I have urgency to balance myself. Oh, to balance myself. Is that a masculine trait?
That's a good question. I've not had it ever posed that way. The word, if you're relating to the word, the urgency. I'm not quite sure.
Feminine. Yeah, I'm thinking feminine because it's like bringing it back to alignment.
Balance, alignment.
Because balance is peace and calm.
I don't know if, Linda, if you're talking about the action of urgency. Is urgency masculine or feminine? I don't know if that's what you're asking. Right, to balance yourself, right?
I unmuted myself. I'm just noticing last night I was realizing, wow, I'm wanting to do all these incredible practices. I'm learning a lot online, but I'm also tapping into things that I really known, but I haven't been, putting into practice as much. And, okay, I got to get my yoga in, my meditation, my walk out in nature, my food done. And I'm getting so, I noticed I was like, oh, I'm spinning. So obviously I know I need, to go back to the meditation and some grounding, and like we talked earlier. But I was wondering about that. It does feel like urgent, like it's got to be already done. And so when you're in that, I guess it's a doing. Maybe I'm answering my own question.
That's right. You got
doing
it.
in circles.
It's a masculine thing. Yeah. You're wanting to get to that place of being with the balance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's the masculine coming back to the feminine, to the balance. Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, we actually don't really have time for one more question, but let's see. Urgency comes from an underlying restlessness, another overdoing. Yeah, so yeah, I think we're all, yes, in agreement and alignment with that. And yeah, the beauty of the sort of construct and lens, I would say, is that we get to know ourselves better if we slow down and do that inquiry and see where we're reacting, see where there's shadow coming, and see if we can name and identify and then embrace the shadow, yes, and the the divine aspect or the light aspect. And, you know, this is the time. This is about us embracing and being as conscious as possible. So thank you all for being here. And thank you, Sunshine, so much for coming and leading such a beautiful conversation.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, I really
Robyn.
appreciate it. You're welcome. I just put a note in the chat. Please join me for the Self-Love Lab, which is happening on Thursday. This is an extra piece that I put into the calendar. It's a 90-minute free masterclass on self-love. And really, you know, this fits directly in with what we're going to do on Thursday, which is really taking time. The 90 minutes is going to really be a lab where there's inquiry and practice happening to look inside and see what's going on with love and self-love and the shadow and the light, and then really move into taking action around that during this really unique time that we're in. So thank you for joining us. We have a really big group, and look forward to seeing you there. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everyone. And next week, I will see you back here for Daily Intimacy, Tuesday at 9, and I'll send you emails about all the rest. So no need to say anything else except namaste and have a beautiful day. Thank you, everybody.
Namaste.
Blessings.
Thank you, Robyn.
You're welcome. 1 hour is not enough time. I hear you, Neil.